Welcome back to the show. For over 50 years, St. Louis had two baseball teams, the St. Louis Cardinals and the St. Louis Browns. But after the 1953 season, the Browns moved to Baltimore and became the Orioles. The greatest Oriole of all was Frank Robinson, and the best player in Browns history was a man nicknamed Gorgeous George. George Sisler grew up as part of a prominent family in Akron, Ohio. George, along with brothers Bert and Cassius, loved sports, and George honed his skills as a youth in Barberton, Ohio. He was so highly regarded that he was recruited to play baseball at the University of Michigan for a man that would become perhaps his closest friend in life.
Mr. Rickey was the coach at the University of Michigan, and that's where my grandfather met Mr. Rickey and played for him his freshman year up there, and that's how they first met.
After graduating from Michigan with an engineering degree in 1915, Sisler signed with the St. Louis Browns, shown here with team vice president Walter Fitch. The manager at the time was Branch Rickey.
He was very fast. His fielding average was superb. He covered more ground than most first basemen would cover at that age, because when he was in high school, he actually was a left-hander, but he played shortstop. At the University of Michigan, he was a pitcher. He came up as a pitcher.
As a southpaw, Sisler was considered an excellent pitching prospect, and he outdueled one of the best in history.
He played against Walter Johnson and beat him twice as a pitcher for the St. Louis Browns.
Sisler pitched 15 games his rookie year and had a career ERA of under 3 runs a game. But he was such a tremendous athlete, he had to play every day. And in 1917, he hit over 350. In 1918, Sisler was having a nice season, batting .341. But the season was suspended on Labor Day due to World War I. After the season, George joined the Army as a second lieutenant under Major Branch Rickey's Chemical Warfare Service. Sisler was designated for assignment overseas, but on November 11, 1918, the war ended and Sisler's baseball career entered a magnificent stretch of baseball excellence.
In 1920, he batted .407. That was the year he set his single-season hit record at that point in time.
And then 2 years later, he has .420 and is the MVP, and the Browns came within 1 game of winning the pennant. The lowly Browns almost won the pennant that year.
Sisler was also a man of great character.
He was not a carouser. He was not a drinker. He was not a smoker.
Sisler was on top of the world and was becoming a national icon. Gorgeous George was the first baseball player to be featured on the cover of Time magazine. But after the 1922 season, an illness struck Sisler, which derailed him in the prime of his career.
He evidently had a sinus infection in 1923, or before 1923, I mean right before the season, and it caused him to have double vision. And so he was not able to play through the whole year of 1923.
Sisler returned for the 1924 season and hit over .300, but never felt like he was the same player.
He was never satisfied with his ability to hit after that. I think his final year he may have been hitting .313, but that wasn't good enough for him to continue. He didn't think that was worth playing for anymore.
Sisler played 4 more years with the Browns, and after the 1927 season, he was sold to the Washington Senators for $25,000. After an uneventful start to the 1928 campaign, Sisler was dealt to the Boston Braves, where he batted well over .300 his last 3 years in the majors. After his playing career, he became a scout for Branch Rickey with the Brooklyn Dodgers and was a key player in breaking the color barrier with the signing and development of Jackie Robinson.
I have to believe that he was one of the scouts, if not the most important scout, that was talking to Mr. Rickey about Jackie Robinson's ability as an athlete and Jackie Robinson's ability mentally to be able to make that jump.
In the 1950s, Rickey took control of the Pittsburgh Pirates and brought Sisler on board, where he was very instrumental in the success of a Latin prospect named Roberto Clemente. Sisler was given a lifetime pass by Major League Baseball to attend any game free of charge for the rest of his years. He remained a St. Louis-based scout for the Pittsburgh Pirates the remainder of his life.
He loved St. Louis. He raised his children here in St. Louis. He lived down in Pershing. He's buried here in St. Louis. He grew up, he was from Ohio, went to school in Michigan, but St. Louis became his home.
Joe DiMaggio beat Sisler's hitting streak in 1941. And in 2004, Seattle Mariner Ichiro Suzuki surpassed the 84-year-old season hit record.
Last year when the Cardinals had the All-Star game here in town, when he was in town, he found out where my grandfather was buried, and he and his wife, and I believe another gentleman, went over there and placed some flowers on my grandfather's gravesite, which was unbelievable.
Ichiro actually feels a real connection to the Sisler legacy, and that it was important for him to make that homage.
After Suzuki broke Sisler's hit record, a Japanese company made these one-of-a-kind porcelain dolls of Ichiro and Frances Trockelman, Sisler's daughter. Although Sisler played for the Browns, the Cardinals felt the need to honor his achievements with a statue outside of the new Busch Stadium.
George Sisler is the best Browns player that St. Louis saw. It's a natural that the Cardinals would recognize Sisler in their homage to the American League team that was here from 1902 to 1953.
George Sisler is a member of the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame. He has a statue outside of Busch Stadium, and he's been elected to the St. Louis Walk of Fame, sitting between Jackie Smith and Dred Scott, and just 5 stars away from his mentor, Branch Rickey. Joe Edwards founded the Walk of Fame and has preserved the legacy of St. Louis's greatest American League player.
He was definitely the greatest St. Louis Brown baseball player ever, and one of the greatest players in all of baseball history. He'll stand the test of time. His star will be in the St. Louis Walk of Fame forever.
We have a photograph that shows Ty Cobb, Babe Ruth, and my grandfather all shaking hands. And the legend has it that the ball players being inducted took a vote, and all 3 of those gentlemen tied for the people they thought was the most valuable or best baseball player.
Sisler still holds the American League record for highest batting average at .420, and he was such an icon in his era that his legacy is forever immortalized with several mentions in the Ernest Hemingway classic, The Old Man and the Sea. Poetic justice for the perfect ball player.